Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Thanks for tuning in. Got another great show lined up for you this week. I know you'll think so after seeing it and listening to it. David Eickholt will join me at the end of the show, HawkeyeInsider.com. In the middle will be Adam Haluska, former Iowa Hawkeye sharpshooter. And Adam has a lot of experience in the NCAA tournament and going to talk about the Hawkeyes unfortunately losing yesterday as we record this on Tuesday afternoon. Of course, it airs on Fridays. And then, of course, online after that, DaveO'HaraSports.com. So Adam Haluska, former second-round NBA pick, and he'll give us all his information and thoughts about the Hawkeyes season and the loss yesterday. But it's okay because the ladies are still playing. The Hawkeye ladies, Bluter's Bunch is playing today at 2:30. Right about the time we're recording, they play Kentucky, number 5 seed Iowa against number 4 seed Kentucky. Again, you'll know that result when you see this show on Friday, but as we're recording it Tuesday afternoon, the Lady Hawkeyes are getting ready to tip off. Congratulations big time to the Hawkeye wrestlers who won the national championship 24th time, and that's the 4th time under Tom Brand's first championship since 2010. So we'll talk about that in the show as well. So now that I've located my buddy Joel Tice, Joel is the president and owner of Tice Automotive Family. Tice Time with Joel Tice. Joel, my friend, how you doing? What's happening in your world?
We're doing good, Dave. Appreciate you having me on here.
Well, it's my pleasure as always, and I've got to ask you directly. You know, you and I were talking off the air a little bit. I want to get into spring season and your business and how that's what's happening there. But the Hawkeye game yesterday, you had mentioned how sometimes Hawkeye games can cut productivity and sales at your automotive group. So talk to me about that, if you would, please.
Well, everyone was real disappointed with the outcome yesterday, and but the real advantage is that we're a little more productive during work when there's not a Hawkeye game in the middle of the day like that. So it is a small advantage, but we'd rather seen them keep going if we could have. We had big expectations around here because when you're ranked as high as they were this year, you just thought this was maybe the year that maybe they could pull off a national championship with the talent that they had. So
yeah, you're right, and bring out and let Luka end his career in style, as you mentioned. Luka Garza now done at Iowa, and Jordan Bohannon, but a lot coming back. Looks like Joe Wieskamp will be gone as well. So, and you're an Iowa alumni, so University of Iowa alumni, and you do a lot of donations and scholarship funding to local schools, high schools, colleges, and the university itself. So I know, as you mentioned, it bums everybody out, but hope springs eternal. So I got to ask you this: speaking of spring, how are things going at the dealer at the Family Auto Group at Tice Automotive Family? And I got to ask you this directly: the change of season, I would presume, has to help a little bit, does it not?
Oh, this is go time for us. It's if you're not busy right now, you're probably doing something wrong. Because when the snow goes away, especially March, April really gets a lot of activity. Just because people, don't want to buy a vehicle in the middle of winter a lot of times because of the snow and salt. So it does. We see a lot of activities, and sometimes we'll see our most activities is on Saturday mornings when we're open here. So it is definitely the right time right now. It's and if anybody's looked around at the inventory on dealers' lots, it's the pandemic and GM and all the manufacturers being closed there for a while a year ago. We still haven't caught up, and now there's this global microchip shortage that's causing shortages in vehicles too. So it's going to be an interesting year. We're not looking forward to ease up much on the inventory front with getting caught back up this year. So.
Well, and that's good news. And so you talk about you being ready for spring as well. I know you've got a son that's playing youth baseball. So now we are rolling into spring big time, and how happy that must make you as well. So it's nice to kind of get away as busy as you guys are at Tice Automotive Family with the whole auto group. And that's got to make you happy now that you've got a nice little distraction somewhat away from business. So you guys are busy, and now you're going to be busy in your personal life watching your son play baseball. So I'm sure you're looking forward to that too.
Oh yeah, no, it's going to be a fun year with all the high school ball that's going to be going on, and he'll be playing multiple. As being a sophomore, he'll be playing up and down, probably some of it. So there'll be lots of games coming up here. So.
Looking forward to hearing all about it. He is Joel Tice, president and owner of Tice Automotive Family, and always appreciate you joining us. Joel, we'll look forward to talking to you in 2 weeks. Keep everything rolling the way it is positively, and now we're into spring, so as you mentioned, it's go time. Looking forward to it, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
My pleasure. We'll be back with more Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara, in just a few moments.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Chevrolet. We've lived through some very interesting times the last few months. Ensuring everyone's safety is more important than ever. That is why we're participating in the Chevy Clean program. At your request, we will pick up your vehicle, service it, and return it after we've cleaned it using the current CDC guidelines. This is just another way to work towards exceeding your expectations. So give us a call and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. And as you can see on the screen, I've located my buddy Adam Haluska. You see all Adam's information at the bottom of the screen along with mine. Adam, former Hawkeye sharpshooting great. Adam was a second-round pick in '07 in the NBA draft. Adam played internationally for a while after being in and around the NBA. And now, as we've talked to Adam in this show in the past, is in Solon, Iowa, and works in the financial industry and at Wells Fargo. So first and foremost, Adam, thank you so much for joining us. And how's everything going in your world?
Everything's good. My brackets are destroyed, and Hawks obviously just got beat yesterday, so kind of a bummer to see the season come to an end, but other than that, doing really well.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that about your world and life going well, but the other stuff, bummer. And yeah, notice I didn't bring up brackets right away because mine is into the wind as well, as I think a lot of people's are. Adam, let's just start right here before we get to the Hawkeyes. I got to ask you this, and a friend of yours and a former teammate of yours, he's been on this show before with you, was Greg Bruner. And I thought Greg's comments about the Big Ten in general, 8 of the 9 teams are out, only 1 team left going to the Sweet 16 in Michigan. His comment on social media was in reference to the Big Ten dribbles the air out of the ball. These other schools, in specific the Pac-12, moves the ball up the floor, a lot of picking, moving, and screening. Would that be an example, or do you think there's something else there where the Hawks needed to play better defense? Where would actually you pinpoint the Big Ten or the Hawkeyes' issues?
I thought that was a tough matchup. I mean, athletically, that was a good team. Big guards, right? They didn't have anybody really over 6'6", 6'7" in that starting lineup, but they played really big. A lot of those guards kind of give us fits. And they shot incredibly well. I'm looking at the stats here. I mean, they shot almost 56% from the field. 44%, 11 to 25 from the 3-point. It's just the margin of error to beat them when they came out and played that well. Obviously, our defense, and there's some things I wish we would have done better, but we didn't get a lot of points out of some of our guards too. Luka and Wieskamp really took the burden of scoring, and when you don't have anybody else kind of helping out, that was a total team effort that we saw that Oregon had. In those big stage games like that, we've got to have everybody there ready to go. And I personally, I think winning the Pac-12 regular season, I think they were much better than a 7 seed. Look at all the other 7 seeds out there right now. I struggle after watching that game to think that that's a true 7 seed. And you got USC, who's a 6 seed. Pac-12 did not get any love in the seeding. And there again, I just thought it was a tough matchup for our guys.
Yeah, you take a look at what you just said about USC, and I had actually USC in my bracket beating KU, which they did handily, almost record-setting, 34-point victory. And that was my concern, is everybody wanted to point at Iowa and Gonzaga in that Elite Eight matchup if it would have played out. But I said the same thing you said off the air last Tuesday after we got done recording. I talked to James Moses, former Hawkeye player, and also my Hawkeye insider David Eickholt, and I said, I see Iowa having some issues with Oregon, and if not Oregon, USC. Well, what about KU? And I said, I don't think KU is going to be in it, and they weren't. And so let me ask you this then, going in that direction. Obviously, Iowa had a lot of injuries. We found out after the game. We found out that, Connor McCaffrey was beyond dinged up. I mean, not to Spencer Lee level in wrestling without 2 ACLs, but still the same. Frederick had been hurt all year. Connor McCaffrey, injuries all year. Joe Wieskamp. I mean, that's part of the game, and I get that, and I know that. The biggest thing I'll say to you, Adam, is a lot of people wanted to crow about Iowa's bench yesterday. And yes, it was great Patrick McCaffrey had 10 points. It was great that Keegan Murray's been playing great off the bench all year. But when you get an offer from Connor, an offer from Frederick, and an offer from Jabo, and then you talk about 89 of the 95 points, Adam, scored by Oregon from their starters, only 6 bench points. Well, of course, Iowa's going to outscore you on the bench if you only have 6 points of 95 from. So that starting lineup led off with Duarte, as you mentioned. I think they were grossly underestimated, big time Oregon was.
Yeah, I think so too. And Duarte, I mean, just look at his defensive presence. Those guys came and were really, I mean, they were getting down. They were ready to play. I don't think they were intimidated by us one bit. And in some of those games, you got to smack people early. Now, we stayed with them, right? There was a couple times there where we were kind of going basket for basket, but to end that first half and go on that dry stretch run where we didn't get a bucket and, give up ended up being 2 free throws made right at the very end, but it could have been 3. I think Duarte was the guy who kind of jumped and Perkins got up in the air. It just wasn't a good feeling going into halftime. I think if you would have went into halftime a little more secure, I just kept saying there's no way Oregon's going to shoot that well in the second half. And they may not have shot exactly as well in the second half, but they did what it took to finish that game. And anytime we made a run, they stopped it. They got, buckets. They hit a bunch of threes. It just, they took the air out of our tires every time we tried to make a run.
Yeah, it really did. And, the intriguing thing to everything you're bringing up, what it's like to get sent home, even though it was your junior year and it was the end of the career for Greg Bruner and Jeff Horner, your friends and teammates. And, of course, they've been on the show with you as well in the past. And losing to Northwestern State, I'm not saying Oregon was Northwestern State by any stretch, but the disappointment. So take us through that if you would. And I hate to have you relive this. Sorry, Hawkeye fans. Sorry, Adam. But the emotion that Luka poured out yesterday after that game, and looks like it'll be pretty much of a foregone conclusion. Wieskamp will be gone next year as well to the NBA. J-Bo is done. What a painful loss, period, but then also a painful end of the career, great career of Luka Garza. You know what that's like.
Arguably one of the best players I've seen in a Hawkeye jersey, right? I was born in '83, and there's been some good ones come through. But what Luka did, all-time leading scorer, one of the top greats in rebounding, just people in general, came in underrated, made a huge impact on the program. The difference in our game that junior year when we got beat by Northwestern State, we had a huge lead, first and second half, and ended up kind of throwing it away and got beat on a last-second shot. Whereas Luka, you could just see with about 4 or 5 minutes to go, we just weren't going to make that run. We just didn't have enough time, and I didn't think we had the firepower at the end. And so you could feel the weight of the world on his shoulders. He scored 36 points. He left it all out there. We were talking in the office, hey, let's see him get 40 and have one of those kind of magical performances. But I think Luka couldn't have done anything different. So as he walks off that court for the last time, what a game for him to walk off. 36 points, carried that team as much as he could on his back. And it just wasn't meant to be. But he's got nothing to be ashamed about. He is going to be a Hawkeye legend and one that we'll never forget about.
Yeah, amen to that. And the 36 points with 9 rebounds, almost had a double-double. Wieskamp, another stat sheet stuffer with 6 and 5, I believe, 16 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists, something like that. And another great performance by him. We mentioned Patrick McCaffrey off the bench, Keegan Murray. But that's a tough one to live with for the rest of your life after that being your last game for J-Bo. But let's make no mistake again, no injuries are no excuse here. But that's tough as well. And so when you take a look at this team moving forward, Adam, in the next 2.5 minutes we have with you here before we close out this segment, I got to ask you about next year. It looks very positive for the Hawkeyes moving forward. As you mentioned, Luka, the all-time leading scorer, J-Bo now the all-time assist leader, passing our buddy Jeff Horner, is number 2 on that assist list now. But future looks pretty darn bright for the Hawkeyes upcoming, though. Let's be honest.
Oh, absolutely. We'll see what happens. Hopefully we don't see a lot of transfers or change-ups, but it would be nice if we could find a big man, somebody to replace Luka. We're going to have, obviously, a Gundele, and we're going to have Nunji back, hopefully healthy and ready to go. But we may need to look at what can we pick up in the offseason with the transfer portal and maybe the JUCO route. I think we got some really strong guards. You look at what Tony Perkins was able to do second half of the season. That's a tough role. Some of these freshman guys, even Ulis, and talk about Toussaint being a sophomore, they're really thrown in tough situations, right? Those freshman guys came in yesterday really in the second half when you could tell Fran was looking for some D-stoppers, was looking to change the pace up a little bit. And I thought they did incredibly well. I mean, first NCAA tournament coming in as a freshman, and a lot of those guys had not played major minutes all second half of the season. So I think as Hawkeye fans, you talk about Patrick McCaffrey too. We got obviously the Murray twins and the year that Keegan had. I think he's a potential NBA type player. We've got a lot to look forward to. As much as it was a disappointment, trust me, as a Hawkeye, fan, just like everybody else watching, those guys are going to take it hard, and especially the guys that it was a good taste to see, hey, we got to the first round, got a win, get that second round. Obviously didn't go the way that we wanted, but I think it could be good for those young guys. They've got their feet wet, and hopefully, we got some bright days ahead as Hawkeye fans.
Yeah, well stated, Adam, as always. And I got to ask you this in about 10 seconds. You going Gonzaga or are you taking the field? Does Gonzaga win it or how's it go?
I'll take the field. With the way things are going right now, I had Illinois winning it all, but I'll take the field on that one.
I like the way you're thinking. I'm not going to disagree with you. I said that earlier today when someone asked me. I said, whenever you give me the field and a team, although Gonzaga makes that decision compelling, but I couldn't agree more with you. Adam, thank you so much as always for joining us, and I look forward to catching up with you whenever it avails in your schedule. Thank you so much. He's Adam Haluska, former Hawkeye sharpshooting great. All his information there at the bottom of the screen. Adam, my friend, thanks so much. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Dave. Go Hawks, guys.
Go Hawks indeed. For Adam Haluska, I'm Dave O'Hara, Hawkeyed with me. Thanks again to Adam, and we'll be talking with David Eickholt, Hawkeye Insider, here in just a moment, so please stay tuned. Back with more Hawkeyed with me in just a few moments.
One word means more to farmers than any other: yield. Nobody knows this better than your friend in the field, Mershman Seeds. With industry-leading seed treatments like Trepidity ST, you'll see faster emergence and more bushels per acre. Become a part of the Mershman family and see the difference in your field. Ask your dealer for superiority. Mershman Seeds.
Welcome back to Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara, and as you can see on the screen, I'm pleased to be joined by my buddy David Eickholt, Hawkeye Insider's very own. David, I paused for a second because I'm searching for words. Well, let's do this. Before we get to the Hawkeye men losing, as we record this on Tuesday afternoon, they lost yesterday afternoon to Oregon 95-80. Their dream is done for this season, Luka Garza's career, Jordan Bohannon's career. But let's table that just for a second as you're seeing this on Friday night. So when I say yesterday, obviously, we record this on Tuesday afternoons. The Hawkeye women are getting ready to play today. Again, as you see this on Friday night or listen to it and see it online afterwards, DaveO'HaraSports.com. So David, let's talk about Spencer Lee and the Iowa Hawkeye wrestling program. Mad props as you're shaking your head. Major congratulations. Unreal story. 10th title, first title since 2010 for the Hawkeyes. Tom Brand's 4th, 24 overall for the Hawkeye wrestling program. Unreal story. Unfortunately, Marinelli has a medical forfeit, so he does not get into the medaling round. And then you had, with Ehrman getting second and losing his championship match, Michael Kemmerer losing his championship match and getting second. And then you have Spencer Lee. And I am going to stop right there. And I'm going to let you talk about the social media storm, the reality, the interview he did afterwards, after his championship victory. Congratulations to him. Another national championship, 3 for him now. Spencer Lee, I'm done. Go.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about an alpha's alpha, Dave. I mean, you talk about Spencer Lee, didn't tell anybody he tore his ACL 8 days before the NCAA championships. And I mean, this isn't even the first time he's competed with a torn ACL. If you remember back in high school, he lost at the last second in the state championship, but he wrestled with a torn ACL then as well. So he's down both ACLs, going for his 3rd national title, didn't want to let his team down 8 days after. And I think we've talked about this on the record before, Dave, but wrestlers are often like fullbacks. They're just wired so differently. And I mean, Spencer Lee, I think you need to give him a lot of props for what he's been able to do, to be that dominant this season and to go into the highest level that he can right now and win it. Not only just win it, flat out dominate it with no ACLs. I mean, it's something you can't even make up. It's absolutely incredible what Spencer Lee did. And as you mentioned, Iowa wrestling back on top, and the earth continues its rightful path on its axis because things didn't really feel right since 2010. I know Iowa fans were bittersweet about last season when COVID canceled it because they thought they had a really good shot at it. But Iowa wrestling back on top. And based on everybody coming back next year, Dave, I think they're going to be able to keep that trend going.
I'm really glad you went there because you're right. Last year would have been another national championship, most of us believe, and probably a pretty much of a foregone conclusion. They'd be have back-to-back right now. But you mentioned Marinelli announced, Alex Marinelli, that he'd be back next year. I think there's a lot in place. As we talked about, I'm just shaking my head the whole time reliving this Spencer Lee story as you and I have seen it on social media after he won the championship, his interviews. David, he still won 7-0. And for him, that's a close match. It's some astounding number, like 400 of his matches are either falls or major decisions. 400 of his 442 victories or last 442, some astounding, crazy number. The story continues with him, and all you can do is smile and just go, unreal.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, none of the matches are ever close. I mean, this match was one of his close matches. And again, he's fresh off an ACL tear, and he's still competing. And not only competing, he's flat out dominating. I think there's no doubt he's going to be a 4-time national champion next year because, as you mentioned, the guys are coming back, and Spencer Lee wants to be a 4-time champion. And the craziest part, too, Dave, is he wants to do the Olympic trials here in a couple of weeks, despite having that torn ACL. I mean, you talk about a guy – he's so wired differently to reach greatness. You think of Michael Jordan, you think about all these elite athletes. What put them over the edge? It was their mentality toward the game and just the mentality toward their life and everyday ritual. And I think Spencer Lee is going to be able to fall in one of those categories because, again, he's just a different breed.
Yeah, well stated, and I can't say anything more or beyond that, but how incredible that is. And, well, let's do this. Let's move on to the Iowa women. As I mentioned, we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon, and it airs on Friday night, and again online afterwards, DaveO'HaraSports.com. But the Iowa Hawkeye women getting ready to tip off this afternoon, playing Kentucky, the 5-seed Hawkeyes, against the 4-seed Wildcats. Caitlin Clark, another Spencer Lee type story, not the injuries, but again, as you and I both shake our heads, what an opening round game she had. The Hawkeye Bluters Bunch, Hawkeye women beat Central Michigan. I'll do the same thing I did with Spencer Lee to you. Caitlin Clark, go.
I mean, what more can you say? If Sue Bird's saying that you're the must-watch player of the NCAA tournament, you're doing something right. Caitlin Clark, 23 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds, 50% shooting. I mean, she's going to continue to, I think, really emerge herself among the greats in college basketball. And we'll see what happens today. As you mentioned, we record this on Tuesday, but Paige Beckers and her, who have been, friends, both growing up in the Midwest, competed on the world stage together. There's a potential Sweet 16 matchup there. And obviously UConn is UConn, but man, you talk about box office must-watch television. That's going to be Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers. And I expect Caitlin Clark to put on another show today. And like you said, I mean, the limitless range, that behind the back pass that went viral was absolutely crazy too. I mean, she's going to be something special, and Carver Hawkeye is going to be absolutely rocking next year when fans are, I would say, hopefully allowed, but I think it's almost a conclusion with the way things are trending right now that fans are going to be allowed back in the in the stands. And I think it's going to benefit the athletes as much as it does the people that miss doing it, especially since Iowa traditionally has been very, very supportive of their women's basketball program, and they deserve it with the type of success that Lisa Bluter and Jan Jensen and that whole staff has had.
All right, David, you are incorrect. We've avoided it as long as we can. We got to talk about the end of this season, end of the career for Luka Garza, Jordan Bohannon at Iowa. Nice 5-6 minutes on wrestling and women's basketball. We'll get into more of that later. Adam Haluska and I talked about the Hawkeye men earlier in this program. Let's you and I talk about it. Got about 5 or 6 minutes left. I'm glad we got to go extended time to our normal time with you, a full segment. And let's talk about the Hawkeye men. Tough loss, 95-80 to Oregon. No surprise here, David, that only to a lot of basketball insiders I've talked to, that the Hawkeye men and 8 or 7 other Big Ten teams, 8 of the 9 are eliminated going into the Sweet 16, and it's a brand of ball. Some of my insiders have been saying, the Big Ten dribbles the air out of the ball, where the rest of the world and college basketball world moves the ball, picking and pushing the ball up the floor. Talk about your thoughts about the Hawkeyes, but also the rest of the basketball world and the Big Ten.
I mean, Iowa sort of hobbled the finish line. I mean, we found out post-game that Connor McCaffrey has been dealing with 2 torn labrums for the past 2 months, and he's played through that. CJ Frederick's been nowhere near 100%. Luka Garza was nowhere near 100%. He was hobbling after he went down. I believe he was setting a pick, and he kind of went down awkwardly. CJ Frederick, Jordan Bohannon, obviously. I mean, that team hobbled the finish line, Dave. I mean, Joe Wieskamp tweaked his Achilles in the game. The reality is for the Big Ten, I still think the Big Ten's not been overrated by any means. The Big Ten just beat the ever-living crap out of each other for several weeks. And the team, you look at Kyle Young for Ohio State, he had a concussion. You can go across the board. Isaiah Livers, what's going on with him? Then you look at the Iowa team. I mean, the Big Ten still without a doubt the best conference in America. The Pac-12 has showed up and showed out. I think you need to give them a lot of respect. But as I said, I think the Big Ten just beat itself up. And I'll say this, a very disappointing end. And I think Luka Garza has certainly deserved a better ending to his career. I think Jordan Bohannon deserved a better ending to his career. I mean, you talk about going out with a huge performance, though. I mean, Garza with 36 points, tying an Iowa record, going 14-20 from the field, 9 rebounds. And after the game, he said, look, I didn't do enough. And everybody else is sitting there like, what more could you have done? I mean, he played outstanding, and 3 Iowa stars did not score. I mean, Fran was emptying the bench, trying to find anything to click. But, Oregon, I think, was very underseeded going into this tournament, and that's not an excuse. That's just the reality of it. And I think that they were probably one of the worst 5 matchups in the whole tournament for Iowa, with the way all the athletes that they have and that sort of versatility. And the reality is some days you can hit your shots and some days you can't. I mean, Oregon was fresh off 10 days of rest. So, I mean, you can argue either way, but I mean, I think Oregon deserves a lot of credit. And again, I think Iowa just sort of hobbled the finish line.
I'm glad you went there, because that's the age-old, you and I have talked about this on radio many times, this TV program, we've talked about it, that it's always that rest over rust debate. Was Iowa having the advantage since they got to play, on Saturday and then play Monday? Or was Oregon, was it better for Oregon having 10 days off? Rest over rust, that will always be there. One thing I did want to note, everybody talked about the bench, and you mentioned it. Patrick McCaffrey had 10 points besides Garza, and Wieskamp 16. 3 starters in Frederick and Connor McCaffrey and Jordan Bohannon didn't score. Murray had 6 off the bench. 89 of the 95 points Oregon scored were from their 5 starters. 4 of those starters in double figures. The other starter had 9 points. David, that's 6 points from the bench. So everybody can crow about Iowa's bench scoring, but when you got 89 points scored by your starters, you don't need much bench help.
No, Oregon's just, they're so balanced. You had to be impressed with the type of performance they did. The defense, be able to create steals, to be able to go have that 9 uncontested dunks in that game, Dave. Mm-hmm. And I believe 4 of the 5 stars had more than 17 points. Chris Durante, who is a Jerry West Award finalist.
Yeah, Duarte was unbelievable. You're right. Yep.
Those guys don't miss. If I remember correctly, I think they made 31 to 52 shots between the 4 stars. You're not going to win many games like that. You don't even have to defend at a high level if you're going to hit shots like that. And I think they were over 1.4 points per possession. And again, that's going to win you a lot of games. And I do think that they can provide us maybe a challenge to Gonzaga, and I think they can beat USC. I think they got the versatility and they got the offensive firepower to do it. But of course, the age-old question is, Dave, will that shooting and everything carry over? Maybe they'll go over 20 when they play USC after just scorching the nets against the Hawkeyes.
Well, David, we'll all wait and see and look forward to catching up with you next week. Thanks for joining us as always. He is David Eickholt, Hawkeye Insider. This is Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Dave, thank you so much. We'll catch up with you next week, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, and thank you. So for David Eickholt, Adam Haluska, and Joel Tice, and to you, the viewers, thanks for making us #1 again in late night on Fox 28, KFXA in Northeast Iowa and Eastern Iowa. Thanks to you again, the viewers. But also, please stay tuned for just a second afterwards for the rolling credits, and give the respect and time to my advertisers and sponsors as they do for this program. And please give them your business when you're able to. So without them, we don't have a program, so thanks to them as well. So again, for the aforementioned guests, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. That's all for me. Thanks to all of you.